Take two. Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. And yes, we are firmly back, aren't we? If you're with us for the very, very first time, you can find us. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Facebook, and we are on Instagram too. Guys, look, you don't need me to tell you this because you just know with Tottenham, there's, 3 things guaranteed. Like there were 3 things guaranteed last week. In the case of Tottenham, it's death, taxes, and Tottenham losing before an international break. Tottenham without a win on the eve of an international break since October 2023, which come against Luton Town, who have been relegated since twice. But look, let's not get away from it. Spurs outplayed, outfought, and second best really all over the pitch. I mean, Frank, to be fair, did change it tactically later in the game, but it did feel, to be honest, too little, too late. And I think, again, we look at a number of reasons why. Yes, we've got injuries, but you could also argue this is the consequence and result of the manager arguably maybe not being given the tools earlier in the window for games of that nature. But you have to say, Bournemouth thoroughly deserved their victory. They were arguably, I think, unfortunately, not to go away with a higher scoreline. That is how good Bournemouth were, helping us break it down. Back fresh from the stadium is the wonderful Johnny Hamme over, of course, at Football Inc. We've got Pat, of course, back also on YouTube. Please make sure you give him a like and subscribe. And we've also got back with us, the wonderful TJ Ramini. And we are firmly back in our seats. Before I bring these wonderful gentlemen in, let's talk you through, if you can stomach them, the match facts and the stats. These aren't pretty match facts and stats. I have to say to you, it finished Tottenham 0, Bournemouth 1. Tottenham 5 shots to Bournemouth's 19. And just to also put this into context for you, Tottenham did not have a single shot at all in the first half. Not a single shot. Shots on target for Tottenham, 1 in the end to Bournemouth 6. And these, again, very quite telling stats from here onwards. 18 touches in the opposition box to Bournemouth's 29. Vicario, the much busier of the 2 keepers. 5 keeper saves to 1. Bournemouth dominating the corner count, 8-0. They also hit the woodwork once. Backward passes, Tottenham made 66. To Bournemouth's 42. Tottenham, yes, they dominated or edged the possession, 61.5% to 38.5%. But the XG, I know people might not stand XG or can't believe XG. Look at that as a telling XG stat out there. 0.17 to Bournemouth's 1.45. Like I said, Tottenham very lucky. It could have been a lot worse. And, Johnny, let's come to you. I know you're a big Thomas Frank fan, mate. It's lovely to have you back alongside me. I've spent a lot of the summer with you. It's a poor day for Spurs at the office, right? We can't get away from that. Evanilson's goal, the only difference. But in truth, as I've mentioned, could have been 3 or 4. And look, it's easy to say after the event that maybe we look back at the selection and maybe you'd be questionable over certain players that we made. But especially when we do have injuries, this is a telling thing that we already know. The squad just simply isn't there. And I think the biggest concern fans would have, we have had 7 days to prepare for this game, with all due respect to, obviously, last week. And there was just so many flat performances and a real lack of urgency. I know for some already they feel the honeymoon is firmly over for Frank. What's your make of that game? Because I know, again, like me, big Thomas Frank fan, but poor display at home. We can't have too many more of them.
Listen, I feel like someone's... I need to pinch myself. I feel like I've been in a TARDIS and transported back in time to last season. Look, I'm not going to go in on Thomas Frank because I think it's grossly unfair to do so. I know many will. I think the guy hasn't been given his tools. I mean, I'm looking at that team today, and really I'm looking at one new player that I can give credit for, which was Kudus. Paulinho today looks like about 38 years of age in the middle of the park, and didn't look anything like the player that we saw last week at Manchester City. I've said this before, and I've said it all the way through, even after we had our first 2 wins. I feel that it's impossible to lose 22 games, concede 63 goals in a season, and for a manager to come in, flip a switch and expect to change the whole thing overnight. It's just not realistic. There is no magic switch. Iriola has done a fantastic job. I mean, to lose Kirkes to Liverpool, Zabani to PSG, and Huijsen to Real Madrid, and another one of their midfielders. and produce another performance like that. This isn't an isolated performance. Anyone who saw the performance against Liverpool, where they were very, very unlucky not to take the lead 2 or 3 times in that game, yet came back 2-0 down, came back and gave Liverpool a fright of their lives. It was only like a late Chiesa goal, which put Liverpool back on track again. But there's a lot of work to be done. There is a lot of work. Their press was absolutely superb. It was absolutely relentless. It just never stopped. Spurs could not play through the press.
No.
Richarlison was a shambles. Before the game, I said that Semenya is predominantly a right winger, predominantly. And I said before the game, why is he going to put him up against Jed Spence, who's pocketed every single player that's come down down his side? He's going to flip him over. If I was the manager, and I'm not, he's going to play down Porro's side and expose him. He did it over and over and over and over again. And unfortunately for Thomas Frank, with Destiny Udogie not being fit, the only time he could actually bring Jed Spence onto that right-hand side and put Destiny on the left, the game was all but done. They ran out of juice towards the end, like I knew they would, because I don't think you can press that hard with that intensity for 90 minutes. But we didn't have anything. We had no creativity. Is that Thomas Frank's fault? No, it isn't. He only had Richarlison, and we know he's not a 90-minute player. So you can find all the fault, but I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to pull Thomas Frank apart. What I did like, if I'm going to look for a positive, was the fact that he pulled them over at one point in the game, and the entire team, and was giving them a lecture. Not that it made any difference at that stage, but I think he's got a lot of work to do, and he needs to give him the tools. We need a left-sided player. Brennan Johnson, Brennan Johnson, you got to do more work. Shambolic today. The only people that came out of this with credit, in my opinion, was Vicario with 5 very good saves, or it could have been a lot worse. Bentancur, I thought, transitioned really well, and Mickey van der Ven, and obviously Bergvall, who came on. Other than that, they all need to look at themselves in a mirror, and they need to come back and start performing. And Daniel Levy, you need to get out your checkbook, and you need to give him those 2 players that he desperately needs.
I mean, certainly agree, Johnny. Certainly do agree. I think, again, this is a performance that shows you there's a lot of work to do. I think Thomas Frank says as much as that, which we're going to hear from Thomas Frank shortly in this podcast about the need of work to do in these final few days of the window, where, to be fair, you'd like to think now that's going to accelerate. Pat, let's bring you in. Obviously, you were also there at the ground. And, again, I have to say this, I don't normally want to always compliment the opposition, but I thought Bournemouth were excellent to a man. I think Johnny mentioned there, the press they imposed on Tottenham was quite simply remarkable, and we just simply could not get out in that first half. I think the difference from last week to this week is really night and day. You look at what Spurs imposed on City in terms of Tottenham's tactics, and to be fair to Bournemouth, they were absolutely superb in the way they really mastered how to control Spurs and contain us for large periods of that game. We were second best for most of it, and we were lucky. Let's be honest, it wasn't 4 or 5. It just wasn't good enough, and a clearer indication, we weren't already to know, Pat, there's still a lot of work to do in terms of recruitment and very little time to do it. Pat, what did you make of that?
Yeah, first and foremost, shout out to all the listeners and viewers. I hope you're all okay. That was a shambolic performance. Hopefully that's an isolated one, and hopefully we can go back to the way we saw us play the first couple of games and not today, because it felt like I was in a time capsule in the stadium and I just couldn't believe what I was watching. First and foremost, shout out to Bournemouth. Obviously, Andre Iraola got his bang on, and essentially he outflanked Frank. Frank's a masterful tactician. Frank is an excellent coach, and so is Andre Iraola. Like Johnny said, they've lost some top players to top teams, so that's a big testament to what he's doing there when the big boys are coming and circling and taking your best players. And Semenyo will be out the door probably next year to another top team. I know they extended his contract, but he's a brilliant player, and we're very lucky he didn't make it 2-0 when he snuck past the back stick and basically missed a point blank header where he should have scored. And it just goes to show as well. When I was watching that game, I almost felt like we were Manchester City and they were Spurs from last week. They man marked Richarlison. So essentially, what Romero did to Haaland is what their defender did to Richie, and he just couldn't get the ball to stick. And yeah, they were just excellent, man. In and out of possession, they were brilliant. They were hungry. They were tenacious. They were first to every ball. We looked like our legs were stuck in treacle or quicksand. We just couldn't get going, and they were up for it, man. And it just goes to show that maybe we believed the hype. Maybe these guys got a bit too carried away and a bit too giddy. And as you know, in the Premier League, you've got to be at it 110%. You can't come into a game 85% thinking it's already won because we look good in the last two games. These guys were here. They were hungry and they got what they deserved. And if it wasn't for Vicario making some great saves. The thing is, Vicario is a fantastic shot stopper and he's a great reflex keeper. Still worries me when he's got the ball at his feet. Sometimes we were overdoing it, playing back to him. And I don't understand why. And he's giving up me the jitters and the shakes because he's holding on to the ball for too long. They're obviously pressing high because they know that's what we do. And there was a few nervy moments. But as a shot stopper and goalkeeper, fantastic. Not so great clearing and distributing the ball and kicking it, but that's another story for another day. And I just felt that we just didn't look at it. No creativity and no spark in the middle, like Johnny said. And effectively, we essentially, got what we deserved. And it wasn't until the last 10 or 15 minutes that we tried to turn that screw and step it up. For me as well, shout out to Tel. I thought that when he came on, he was quite good. Had a half chance where he could have scored on a half volley, was trying to take his man on. Kudos was trying to take his man on and do something. It didn't always come off, but at least he wasn't hiding. He was always willing to get on the ball. And unfortunately for me on the other side, I think Johnny alluded to it. Brennan Johnson, who I've been bigging up the last couple of games, he went missing, man. He went hiding. And that's a big flaw in Johnson's game. I do like Brennan Johnson and I do like the fact that he scores goals because like I said last week, scoring goals is the hardest commodity in football. But for me, when the going gets tough, Johnson gets going. He doesn't like to show for the ball and get on it. Kudos was trying to get that ball and take someone on all the time. Same with Wilson Odobert. When he came on, he was taking his man on and he was making something happen. And that's what you like to see from your wide players. Get that ball, show you're the man and actually try and make something happen. And unfortunately for me, Johnson didn't do that. So, there were a few positives, but it was a dark day, not a good day. But the reality is, and I think Johnny said it perfectly, we're a team that lost 22 times last year. And the reason why I was so angry last season is because Ange almost made losing normalized. And when you lose that many games, it's hard to then switch it and all of a sudden become a top team where winning isn't, winning is essentially it has to be the only way. And it will take time to get out of our system. And unfortunately, that crept back in today. It's not the end of the world. Every team in this league will lose games, and every team last year lost games. So hopefully we can just dust ourselves off and go again. But that is something that I don't want to see, man. I mean, you can lose games, but the manner in which we lost today isn't acceptable for me.
Yeah, I have to say, you spoke about Odobert there, Pat and Tel. I mean, I think it was quite interesting that when you look at the first change that we made, the first change was to bring Destiny Udogie on. Now, you could argue you just wanted someone to add a left-footed player on the side, but I think it's very telling that when you've got on the bench a £40 million player in Wilson Odobert, in Matisse Tel, and he's not even the first sub, I found that quite intriguing. The fact that he's been made to wait. And look, with Wilson Odobert, I mean, look, there's plenty of enthusiasm there, but I look at the fact of Spurs making a winger one of their priorities in terms of what they've looked for this window. That tells me a lot about maybe the concerns Frank has in terms of how good are Wilson Odobert and Matisse Tel to affect games. I have to be honest with you, I think if Tottenham are a club, in my opinion, that want to aim and strive to get back around the top 8, the top 6, or dare I even say, people might laugh when I say this, the top 4, that level of play, in my opinion, from what I've seen at the moment, and maybe it's harsh to say this about Tel because again, I've only seen 6 months. I'm not quite sure I've seen enough yet. Again, I know it's early days, and again with Wilson Odobert, a very much raw talent that's going to take their time. But at this level, what I did see from Kudus, like you mentioned there, especially that last 10, 15, he was very direct. He run at players. He was drawing players in. I think Spurs really, if they're going to try and break down opposition like this, that is what they're going to need because, the games like the Bournemouth of this world, with all due respect, if you want to be in and around the top 4, the top 6, the top 7, top 8. You need to win these games. TJ, I'll bring you in. Lovely to have you back on the show. Look, we know the need for a 10's been so clear, right? We've discussed it so much this window. And Spurs have got one, thankfully. They've got Xavi Simons, who was presented to the crowd before the game, obviously to a rapturous reception from the Tottenham faithful. I think, again, you look at the fact these are the teams that this is what we need him for. We need him for teams like this, that especially are going to be busy, ambling around. And, the lack of creativity, like Johnny said in his opening piece there, was the key fundamental reason why we lost the game. We didn't really show any real genuine attacking endeavour throughout that game. And it will underline, hopefully, the importance of what Xavi Simons can bring to the side. But I think the worry would be, Tej, that the collective drop-off overall in the comparison to last week against City, it's such a contrast, right? I mean, how do you try and put together those two different performances in just a space of 7 days?
I mean, it's a dichotomy, isn't it? Even for Tottenham fans. Firstly, lovely to be back on the show. Great to be back on with you, Johnny. Not seen you for ages. Pat, always a pleasure. Thank you to the viewers and the listeners. We'll do our best for you. We'll speak truths, and we'll try to find silver linings where we can, but we're always going to speak truthfully. So to answer your question, Rick, for me, the really stark difference between what we've seen thus far under Thomas Frank and what we saw today was, where was that energy and aggression? I remember being on the show and also chatting to some of my friends here and, of course, my friends back home. And I said, if you could have one word to describe what the impact that Thomas Frank has had on the squad, what would it be? And obviously, it's a difficult question, to kind of to whittle it down to one word. And for me, it was aggression. We just looked so, and of course, like I said the last time, aggression then manifests itself in a multitude of ways, right? It's energy, it's press, it's endeavor, it's confidence, it's bravery, it's courage, it's fortitude, it's all of those things, right? But it stems from one thing, which is be aggressive. Don't be anybody's, don't get bodied out there, man. Stand up and be counted, especially at home. Now, the Tottenham Stadium has had issues right from day one with regards this idea of making our home. Thank you, Pat. Making our home a fortress. I think we're a long way away from that. Like, again, I've talked before about motivational speaking. I'm kind of one of those people that I can just kind of do it. Now, there's lots of people, of course, that do that professionally. I guess I sort of do it professionally, but not really. Somebody needs to really have a chat with this entire team, and I mean ownership all the way down, from the guys who are, stocking the vending machines. Talk about, we have this stadium. Everybody talks about the stadium, but for us, it's almost become a kind of a bone of contention with us, because we're like, well, so what? I take the old White Hart Lane, or I take Wembley where we didn't get beaten. It doesn't really matter. Like, yes, we're proud to have these shiny, bright things, but what we're all about, guys, is winning football matches and winning them in a way that makes us proud. And to Pat's point, even when we lose, you must never capitulate. You must never be beaten. If you're going to go down, you go down swinging. And when you're on the ground, you're covered in cuts and bumps and bruises and breaks and all the rest of it, because you gave your absolutely everything. And if you were bested by somebody who was your better that day, then c'est la vie. You take your licks. But I also just don't think Tottenham have been, or certainly for a long time. It's interesting. I wonder if the viewers or the listeners, or of course you guys, Tottenham for me aren't a team that grow into matches. You know what I mean? We kind of start with a way, and that's how we play. We try to play that way for 90 minutes. We don't really grow into a team. Of course, when you're chasing a lead, like today, with 15 minutes to go, maybe we looked like we were going to score. Maybe. They should have been 5 or 6, Rick. You said 2 or 3. Bro, 5 or 6. Vic made a bunch of unbelievable saves, and also they missed a couple of sitters, right? So we were completely outclassed today. Like all the boys said, fair play to Bournemouth. But I do want to just say, when people are looking at Thomas Frank and everything, I don't think we needed both Palhinha and Rodri today, and Bentancur. But he did the double over Bournemouth last season. He beat them 3-2 at home, and he beat them 2-1 away. So he does know what he's doing. Let's not completely kind of lose our minds. I don't think people are. Again, I've said this before. I think Tottenham fans largely, we're a pretty sensible fan base. Certainly the people that watch and view this program, pretty sensible. So I think we can't give them a pass. Thomas, you have to understand that you're not at Brentford anymore. You're at Tottenham Hotspur, where you are expected to win every single week. But for me, it does come down to the players. You cannot come out there with a lackadaisical, almost complacent, dare I say, arrogant attitude. Nothing infuriates us more than seeing professional footballers strolling around a football pitch that people have paid good money to go and see.
Yeah, listen, it's hard to disagree with a lot what you said there, Tej. Look, we are going to squeeze in our first break of the show, where we're going to try and attempt in a second to bring in Thomas Frank. Again, that's a really important point you made there from your perspective, Tej. And I know you're also probably agreeing on this, Johnny. I was going to try and load this up here. I think, this is the thing, isn't it, about Frank? He's coming into a club where we no disrespect that with Tottenham, when you're beaten, you are on the back page in the newspaper. And what I mean by that is at a club like Bournemouth, you can get away with being beaten at home 1-0 with all due respect to, a Bournemouth. And it doesn't really, make a lot of headlines. But when you are the Tottenham manager, bless you know this, it's going to create headlines. So it's about him now having to deal with that level of exposure that probably he's never been used to before. So, I think what was quite interesting, I know a lot of people around me in the stadium were saying to me today, they're intrigued to see how Frank works this one, because it's the first one he's been behind. Can he find a way to obviously get back into the second half? And look, we're all sitting here saying, these very early days under Frank. I was sat here and said to you beforehand off air, Johnny, remember the early days under Pochettino? I think we lost at home to Wigan. I think we had dropped points at home the opening 10 games under Maurizio. I'm certainly not here losing my mind. I think, like you made that point there, this is very early days into a manager's reign. He's working out really which players are for him, which players aren't for him. And at the same time also, tactically, you learn a lot more in defeat than you do in victory, Johnny. Is that fair?
Yeah, he's had one player.
Yeah.
I mean, Pauline is here on loan.
Yeah.
He's had one player that played in the squad today. In essence, that's the same squad that was shambolic last season. And I'm not quite sure what people expect to happen. Listen, we played Bournemouth. The last 3 games we played Bournemouth, we've got 1 point. Okay? We've lost 2 and drawn 1. Okay? So Bournemouth have turned into our Manchester City, as Patrick was alluding to before. I've got to say, a big shout out today to the performance of the referee. Now, I'm not making excuses. I'm not making excuses because we were shambolic, but that was absolutely one of the worst refereeing performances. He lost complete and utter control. In fact, complete and utter control to Bournemouth, because Bournemouth were going down. He got played for 90 minutes. It was embarrassing, and it never stopped. I was keep thinking to myself, the chance if you don't know what you're doing, that kept ringing out across the stadium consistently. I thought, you know what, we're going to have a moment. It's going to be one moment in the game where he thinks, you know what, I better give him something, and it just never came. Yeah. It never came. I mean, there was one moment where Semenya, I thought he's got to go off.
Yeah,
right? He's already been booked. He's brought him down. It looked like he put his hand in his pocket and then realised, oh, hang on a minute. That's the guy
that's a red card. Yeah.
Look, go on.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think, again, it's almost like you said, he realised there he booked him and therefore he was reluctant to red card him.
Well, what's that got to do with
But I think also, just so we're clear here, I know you're saying this as well, we're not suggesting for one moment we're hiding behind the referee, because let's be honest about it, Bournemouth well and truly fairly beat us. And we've all made that point. This could have easily been 3-4.
Yeah, but key moments like that do change games, though. Let's be honest.
Agree.
If they go down to 10 and they got to sit behind the ball, that is a massive boost for us psychologically and obviously on the pitch. And he should have went off. There's no doubt about that. That is a second yellow.
There was another incident, and I'm not making excuses for Richarlison either. There was one incident right by me. I'm in the East Stand. He had 2 arms round him, dragged him to the floor, gave him nothing. And then another one when Richarlison was trying to break free. I could see him pulling the shirt. It was so blatant. He's gone down. The referee's weighed play on. I think, look, we're clutching at straws. We're just saying that the standard of refereeing that we've seen over the and VAR, we saw Yerimina double hand push on Calvin Bassey last weekend for Man United. We saw another shocking decision for Fulham today. I thought that, here we are, we're 3 games in. And the standard of refereeing I'm seeing right across the Premier League right now is as bad as it's ever been. They need
Did you
to
see the
address
penalty that they gave to United in 97th minute against Burnley so they could win a game this season?
No,
No,
I've not seen it.
Bro,
And I heard Burnley got a goal disallowed.
I can't remember who the United player was. I think it was Ahmad. And he's done a run and the player starts to pull his shirt, but he's genuinely about 12 feet outside the penalty area. He carries on into the penalty area and then falls. They VAR him and give him a penalty. Just so United can actually win a game of football.
That is crazy.
Bro,
Listen,
you
we're
see
not
it.
making excuses. We can't make excuses for today's performance.
Certainly
but
not.
Be serious,
No, certainly not. That was on us today. We came out listless, toothless, and arrogant, and we got our just desserts. We really
tempo,
did.
no tempo, no nothing. But look, guys, let's be serious, right? You've all been moaning, all of you, okay? You've all been moaning for 2 or 3 months about the lack of signings. Where are the tools for Thomas Frank to do his job? Okay. So today he's still only got one tool. Okay. And Paulinho, as I said, who looked about 40 years of age today in the middle of that park, he was just overrun. Can we expect anything? I'm going to judge him when that transfer window closes, and hopefully, he has been given some tools to work with. But just remember, guys, this is the toughest league in the world. There are no easy games.
No. And I think, again, just saying that point, I don't think anyone looks at this league and anyone thought Bournemouth was a walkover, because they're a good side. They've got a good manager. And we said at the top of the show, despite losing a whole host of players, it just shows you the quality they've got. They were swarming us for a majority of that game. Look, we are going to squeeze in our first break of this show. Let's hear from Thomas Frank, who reflects on having inflicted on him his first defeat in the Premier League as Tottenham Hotspur head coach.
What was your team missing today?
I think we clearly didn't perform well today. I think we played against a very good Bournemouth team that we know can make it difficult for any team in the league. They played to their strength. They did that very well. We didn't handle it well. We knew exactly what they came with. We trained for it. We just didn't handle it well enough in terms of the balls behind the second ball game and the duels in the middle of the park. And then I think that's the defensive side of it. On the offensive side, we struggled to find good enough solution to get through phase 1 and 2, so we could get up there and then put a bit of pressure on them. We only did that in the last 15, where we put good pressure and we could have equalized, but I think over the game it was fair that Bournemouth won.
So it felt like that lack of creativity until those final minutes. I mean, obviously that will be partly addressed by Xavi Simons coming in. Is that something you'd like to try and address in the last couple of days of the window as well?
I think it's fair to say that we also didn't defend it as well as we should do, and we have done in the first 3 games. So that I'm quite confident we'll come back to defend well again. But that could have helped massively. Of course, I would say the creativity, yes, that's something. I think that's also why we signed Simons, of course, to have an extra offensive player. But I also think on the day, with all due respect to our front 4 players, none of them hit a high level, and that happens sometimes. Very aware. That's I don't want to say it's okay, but it's natural.
Very quickly, any concerns with Dominic Solanke's ankle? Is it saying he should be back after the international?
I'm hopeful that he will be back after the international break.
Hi, Thomas.
Hey.
Just adding on Solanke, does that mean, or could it mean that you look for a striker in the final days? You didn't have a natural striker to bring on today when you were a goal down.
No, but I will not say that particularly. I think to have the 3 strikers in a window in a squad can also cause a problem. They can only play one at a time. So it's a fine balance. I'm not saying we will never go for another striker another time, but I think I'm happy with Dom and Richie.
The fans booed at half time and at full time. Could you understand that? Are you comfortable with that?
I prefer them not to boo, but I understand it was not a good performance today, and they have high expectations, which is absolutely fair. And I think, let's say we performed even better, and you can still lose a football match today. I don't think we hit the level we should. I think the players gave everything, and then that's the foundation, and put the heart out there. But football-wise, we didn't hit at top level today.
Hi Thomas, I'm sure you knew that Spurs were far from the finished article, but obviously some fans after last weekend at Man City would have been getting excited. Does kind of today just show that there is work to do to make this squad the level that you want it to be?
Yeah, but it's not about only making the squad the level. It's also for us to not manage, but play different games. It's one game against City, one kind of football, different kind of football against Burnley. Bournemouth is a completely third kind of football. And all kind of footballs you need to be able to perform against. And today we struggled with it.
Just with Xavi Simons, I mean, how excited are you to sign him? And where do you see him fitting into this squad? Obviously, he's a very versatile player.
Yeah, very excited, very happy that we signed him. I think it's a great signing from the club. He can play 10 and he can play left winger. That's the two main positions.
Hi, Thomas. Just on Dom's injury, is there any reason why it sort of resurfaced?
Why is what?
So, because it's related to the ankle injury he had in pre-season, right?
Yes.
He came back, now he's injured again.
Yeah, sometimes, it's just taking a little bit longer time. It's easier. It's not like he re-injured it again. So you can say if you have a muscle injury, that you can maybe re-injure. It's nothing to do with that. It's not progressing as quick as we hope for. But we are still positive about that it can be solved in the next 2 weeks.
Obviously lost today, but how do you reflect on your first 3 league games in charge of Spurs, and have you got any plans for the international break?
I think 2 good performances and 1 bad. So I would like to avoid bad performances. I think the lower level was too low today. So that's what we need to raise. I think again work ethic and character in the team was good, but I think we lacked some football bits.
Final one, please, Tom.
Thomas, a slightly obvious question, but when you've got a game like that where you're struggling to break them down, what can Xavi bring with his skill set?
I think he can bring on a day where I can say our structure building up and all that, because it's not only about that. Then sometimes you need a player that can do something a little bit out of nothing, go past the player, produce a cross, a short pass with that extra quality that you need on the day, and that's what I think he can bring.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So there you go. That was Thomas Frank there on the back of Spurs having their first defeat of the Premier League inflicted upon them by Bournemouth. Some interesting things to pick up there from Thomas Frank. Again, as we know, and as confirmed there, another injury for Solanke. Just so typical Tottenham, isn't it? The fact that with Solanke didn't appear to be injured at all during his time at Bournemouth, comes to Spurs and quite literally just can't seem to keep him fit, which is a big problem for us, given the fact that with Richarlison, I think he's a very much confidence forward, Richarlison. So when things don't go only up in kind of 10, 15 minutes, that is my only concern when it comes to Richie, when you are relying on him being the only real forward option in there. And again, obviously not having Xavi Simons available for this one was a blow. Obviously, Frank discussed the excitement for the player. Look, I know.
Rick, do you mind if I just jump in for a second about Rich? Sorry, mate. It's just a very quick point.
Yeah.
I was saying that Tottenham, for me, just don't seem to be a team that kind of grow into games. We start in a certain way, and we either start really well, play really well, or we start really badly and play really badly. And obviously, today was very much a case of the latter. Yes, Richie is a confidence player, but also because he has, how can I describe this? He has a sort of petulance, which manifests itself either in that he harries and harasses and harangues his centre-backs tirelessly, just like never gives them a break, which he's done for the last 2 games, or it kind of manifests itself like a stroppy teenager, who doesn't want to take their dishes to the kitchen, who doesn't want to pick up their dirty clothes off the bedroom floor, and today he really did seem like a petulant, stroppy little brat. that kind of dour, sort of down attitude. Again, if that manifests itself like I'm going to be someone who you don't want to mess with, brilliant. But if he's not going to be like that, he got bodied, tackle one, and he threw all of his toys out the pram. He held up one ball today and managed to play in Destiny, who, his first touch wasn't good. He's rusty, right? He's just come back. And that was it. He literally offered us one thing today. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. I mean, John, you know the player quite well, if you don't mind me saying, Richie. Do you feel sometimes at times it's either great or quite poor? There's kind of no in between. Would you say that's fair? I mean, I know the biggest problem with his time at Spurs is really trying to keep him fit, because his game-to-goal ratio isn't that bad. I think we know that in general. He's not got a terrible game-to-goal ratio, but it does feel a problem that, Richie can either be excellent or poor. There's never an in-between. Is that fair, John, do you think?
I thought it was shocking today. There's no excuse for today. But yeah. I think fans have a go-to in most games, and Richie will be that scapegoat on the whole. I think a lot of people need to look at Pedro Porro. I mean, I haven't heard the noise.
He wasn't great in this one. He wasn't great in this one, Pedro. He had a poor game, Pedro.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. He was torn to shreds, wasn't he?
Again and again and again. And, nearly every single attack came down that side.
It did.
So what's fair on one side has to be delivered on the other. There is no excuse for Richarlison's performance today. Where he was winning every 50-50, winning every ball last week against PSG and against Manchester City, there was none of that today. So I hear this, the old one, they weren't at it today because it was the international break and they don't want to get injured for their country. Romero and him and the others. But I saw Bentancur have a very good game today. He was probably the best of the whole of our midfield until Bergvall came on. So I don't think that's fair, but I can understand why fans go to that adage. And by the way, to those that are saying that, I brought up the referee and I'm making excuse, there is no excuse for today. I stated that again and again and again. There is no excuse for his performance. There's no excuse for Richarlison's, Porro's, Johnson's, and various other players. I mean, Paulinho, Patrick said they look like they're running in treacle. Quicksand, Paulinho. I mean, how do you go from being that guy who was breaking up every single tackle last week to the guy this week who just everything's passing him by? Now he was dropped maybe by Munich.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we'll always do our best on this show to try and call it as we see it. And I know for those out there, just so we are trying to call it as we see it, for those that are interested by this stat, the minus 15 shot difference is our worst home performance in terms of that particular stat since Opta records began. So we're not trying to shirk it here and trying to, say in any way or dress up it was better than what it was. It certainly wasn't. And the reality is that work needs to be done. Obviously, Frank was asked about the market. He was asked, does this show kind of the squad, the level you want, does need to be improved? And he said, it's not about only making the squad. It's also for us to not, manage, but the games in general. So, we do know there's a day and a half or so to go. I will give a quick round up at the end in terms of the window itself, but we do know 100% there is more work that certainly needs to be done. Now, guys, you got into us in your droves here. Over 70 listener viewer questions. If we read all 70 out, obviously we'd be here till midnight, but I will just give a flavour of what we've had here for the viewers and listeners that have taking the time to get in touch. Jonathan Burnett says here, got scored first half and start of the second. Semenyo v Porro, total wipeout mismatch. Question was asked, do you think Udogie should have come on much sooner or is he not fit enough? I think the key would be that I think if a fully fit Destiny Udogie is available, I think he starts that game. And I can see the boys all nodding here as well. So they do agree. I know there's kind of this bone of contention around, I can see a lot of the questions here is around the fact of the booing. And look, I'll be honest with you, I love our fan base. And I wouldn't ever want to sit here and tell fans what they should and they shouldn't do. But when I look from the outside and I think we're match day 3, it's the second game of a new manager's tenure at home and we're booing them off at half time and we're booing at full time. Look, I get it. We've seen a lot happen over the last however many years at Tottenham when it comes to, like TJ said at the start, not making a home a fortress. I mean, Pat, what do you make of that for you if you want to comment? Because again,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was
really
just
like
gonna
criticising our
quickly.
fans. I don't really like
Yeah,
criticising our fans.
no, I think the booing at don't get me wrong, I didn't boo, but the booing at halftime was justified. If fans want to voice, as long as you're not being abusive. Obviously, the
Yeah,
performance was dreadful, so I
yeah.
do get the boos. It wasn't anything abusive. They were just letting their
It
feelings
wasn't.
know
It wasn't. It
that's
wasn't
not
directly. It wasn't directly
exactly.
target
It
Thomas
was just
Frank.
the
It wasn't at Thomas
performance
Frank.
wasn't good
Yeah.
enough. The second half booing was 100% at the referee and not the actual club. It wasn't at the players and the manager. Of course, the performance wasn't great, losing 1-0. But I do believe that the booing at full time was to do with the referees, VAR, the
Yeah.
linos, whatever you want to call it, because so many decisions didn't
Yeah.
go our way and it was just crazy. But again, we're not here to blame the referee solely, but
No,
100% they had a big inkling on how that performance panned
Yeah.
out because Bournemouth got away with murder. The time keep wasting was a joke, and they just
I
didn't
think
manage that.
Pat,
And
you
then
know what I mean. When they
yeah,
put let you come back in here, when they put
yeah,
7 minutes up at the end,
it should have
unfortunately, those
easily,
7
yeah,
minutes does not allocate for the amount of time wasting that goes.
exactly.
It's 7 minutes. It could easily be 10 or 15, Pat, couldn't it? The amount of time
It should have been at least
wasted.
10, and even in that 7 minutes, they wasted about 2 or 3 of
Yes.
that.
Yep.
And again, the referee just didn't handle it, and I'm just sick and tired of seeing this. I mean, even the goalkeeper got booked for time wasting, and then they still
Too
allowed him
late.
to time
Yes.
waste.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's just, yeah, it's a bit of a joke, that one.
Yep. Can't get away from it. Can't get away from it. It was obviously a bit of a joke in terms of that time wasting. Guys, that we wish you could bring more questions into the show. We'll try our best to do so. That we're going to briefly touch upon the lineup. I'm not going to talk everybody through the incidents because we know really we weren't up to it on our day. It wasn't good enough. And to be fair with Tottenham in general, let's be honest, and we've said it already here, we all want Thomas Frank to succeed. We all want to see Thomas Frank do well, but you can't have that level of performance at home on a regular basis. Otherwise, there will be problems. It will be curtains. But at the same time, I think we all recognise and acknowledge that at the start of a new manager's reign, you are going to get blips in the road. You're not going to always win your first 10 or your first 8 or your first 7. Again, we have to be real about that. I know Tottenham in previous seasons, to be fair, barring maybe the recent one, they started quite well under Ange. We had the 10 unbeaten. I think under Conte, we had a record points total to start with. In terms of that lineup there, we already brought it to you slightly about that news about, of course, Dominic Solanke, who missed out on the Spurs squad. Quite interestingly, Manor Solomon back on the Spurs bench for the first time since we go back now to 2023. On Solanke's injury, Frank has confirmed their minor issue with his ankle. There's been a little bit grumbling also in terms of the pre-season. So we just hope after the international break, he will be ready for that. Obviously, Destiny Udogie had a week back in training. He was also back on the bench because Jed Spence has done more than enough to keep his place. He's earned his first England call-up. We wish Jed, of course, all the very, very best with that. I think Jed will also admit not his best game in a Spurs shirt. So Tottenham lined up with Vicario, Polina, Richarlison, Romero captain, Kudus, Johnson, Pedro Porro, Spencer, Betancourt, Van der Ven, with the subs of Kinski, Dan, Sotel, Udogie, Gray, Bergvall, Solomon, Odegaard, Davis. And I actually turned to Adam Osper, bless him, I was sitting with for this game. I said to him, God, we started quite well. We were through within a minute. I said, God, is it great to see us start so brightly? And then quite literally from there, we absolutely got dominated by Bournemouth. They completely swarmed us in a press. Because I was in the South Upper and was looking down, you could really see this really swarm of Bournemouth players all over Tottenham. They were really pushing us high, really pushing up the pitch. And that's credit to obviously the work that Andoni Iraola has done with them on the training ground. And it paid off evidently because only in the 4th minute it took for them to score. TJ, I'll come to you to unfortunately have to pick apart our first goal conceded in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a great one on eye because you look at the way it came about, one through ball really outdone us, given far too much space really in the box. Evanilson turned and shot. Yes, it was deflected as well, but sliding Romero over Vicario into the back of the net. Spence slow to get out, played him onside. Poor goal to concede, right? Poor goal.
Yes, it was. It was a poor goal to concede, but it was coming, wasn't it?
It was.
And like we said, it could have been. Listen, if we're sitting here today, guys, and we've just been beaten 4-0 by Bournemouth at home, the tone of this program, and obviously the tone in the stadium and the tone around the club and Thomas Frank, and then of course all the media outlets and everything would be very different. So we've dodged 3 or 4 bullets today because it really could have been a drubbing. And then also sort of defensively, talking about Porro and everything. Yeah, he didn't have a good day today. However, Kudus didn't offer him enough cover. Certainly not in the first half. And the thing is that, Johnny, you're absolutely right. He had a bad day, but I don't think we can ask Porro, bro, be faster. Semenyo just bodied him today and is just faster than the kid. I don't think we're ever going to point our finger at Pedro Porro as somebody who doesn't try. Like, he is fully Coys. Like, he really is. I think. I don't think anyone would suggest that he isn't. He's just not the fastest. He's certainly not as fast as Semenyo, but they do need cover. And then Johnson, people love to bag on Johnson and always have since he first arrived. I wasn't one of those people. I think he scored some crucial goals, and of course, scored a really crucial goal a few months ago. But again, you can't not go about your duties. You do have a duty, just part of your job description. So again, he offered Spence no cover either. He didn't really make any runs in behind. He didn't really dribble. I know he's a right winger who's playing on the left wing, but again, just endeavour and hustle really does pay dividends. Rick, you said that press that you could see and you had like a bird's eye view of it. Well, that's hustle and endeavour. Of course, it comes from the manager. Guys, let's do this when they're in possession and trying to play out the back. But the boys on the pitch have to execute that plan. And so, to your point, Ricky, here's a Bournemouth player probably 30 yards outside of our goal, ball to feet, and you've got 11 guys looking at him. If that was against City, he gets nowhere near that ball because as soon as he's received it, before he's turned around, wallop, he gets hit by Palhinha, by Bentancur, or if it gets beyond them, out comes Romero. Romero was invisible today, other than, unfortunately, deflecting the goal into the back of his own net. So it really was a team issue today. And we just lacked that energy and that hunger. And again, as the boys have all said, and of course, our wise and learned viewers and listeners have also stated, we just weren't up to it today. We were strolling around. You're not going to get away with it at this level, man. Not this. When you go to Sunderland, you're not going to get away with it, dude. Like, not in the Premier League. And so it was just a case of lack of effort, lack of work rate. Very simple ball. Evanilson strikes it with his weaker foot. It's a decent strike. Comes off Romero's knee into the back of the net. 1-0.
Yeah, I say first time Spurs was in the Premier League, and it was far too simple. Like I say, Senesi and Evanilson played on side by Spence.
The whole day was
maybe
so
Van der
simple.
Ven.
The whole day was so simple for them. They were chilling, cruising.
And already that kind of early stage, it kind of killed any vibe, in the stadium to really kind of get going. And I think, again, we spoke about it. It's because at home we haven't really had a sustained period of, regular wins where it does feel with fans. We just need to feel that confidence again of being at home and winning. We've not had that winning feeling at home. And that's what I think transcends into the stadium, that nervousness that when we do go 1-0 behind, there's not necessarily that confidence that we are going to grow and come back into those games. And that's where, again, we're looking at Thomas Frank on the sidelines. We're looking at him to try and change it. We see animation with him. And Johnny, you picked up that interesting point with Frank because, Bournemouth in that early stage, they were playing some outrageous football in the early period. Could have easily been 2 up. We saw Semenyo head over the bar. Bournemouth again on fire. Then another 2 quick succession chances. Brooks again with a decent opening. And it's interesting. We saw Frank at the time of the Adam Smith injury, like you said, call the players over. What do you think he would have been said at that point? Just to keep calm and stick to what he would have told them beforehand? What do you think the message would have been at that point from Thomas Frank?
Nothing that's probably repeatable here, I would say, because it was shambolic.
It was.
No, but I've got to be honest. I think he was very calm. He told everybody what he thought. It made absolutely no difference, though. It was like Monday morning in class at school, where you've had your weekend, you've come in, and the teacher's telling you the lights are on, but nobody's home. And nobody was listening, and they just went through the procedure. There's one thing I must say about Kudus, right? I noticed it at West Ham, and it was a concern I had when he came here, and I'm hoping that he gets rid of it. He needs to release the ball. There are so many moments where he picks up the ball. I love the way he runs with the ball and drives.
Agreed.
But there are times, mate, pick up your head and play players in. There was a couple of incidences where he didn't do that and he cost us. Listen, I'm not knocking him as a player, but I can see the areas of the game which it seems terrible that I'm actually picking on someone there, but I just see an area of improvement.
Yeah.
But guys, just for the guys that keep going on about accept it and move on about our performance, I have accepted it. We were awful, and I am moving on. It's game number 3. Okay,
of potentially 60. Can we just add? We might have 60 here. Pat, don't fall over when I say that. Pat, we can't have Pat collapsed on match day 3. Pat, because he wants to come in there. What was the point you're going to make in there, Pat? What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, I hear what you're saying, Johnny, but I think it's a bit harsh to knock Kudus because he was actually the only one literally getting
in the last
up the pitch.
Hang on, Patrick. Let me just explain. Sorry, look, I'm not knocking him, right? Because he looked the most positive outlet.
Yeah,
what I'm
100%.
saying is there's a parts of his game where he carries the ball too far. Right, and he can release players, and he did it at West Ham. And I'm not saying he's greedy, but there are moments where you can't do it all. Okay, that's all.
No, I hear it. But also, in a game like today, where no one looked at it and no one was showing for the ball or even looked remote, sometimes I feel that he felt he just had to do it all, and maybe that is the trait of somebody who believes in his own source or whatever you want to call it. But it's I hear what you're saying, but I do think it's a bit harsh today.
I agree with you, Pat. I think in the last 10-15 minutes, if there was one player that looked like he was going to make things happen for us,
it was him.
It was him. I know, Johnny, you agree with that as well. I mean, yeah. He was one of the very few that could make things happen. Look, I mean, first off, really have to be honest about it. Bournemouth dominated us. We get in at half time. Not a single shot attempted by Spurs in that first half. We spoke about the smattering of booze. Like, again, I don't feel comfortable, me personally, in critiquing what fans should and shouldn't do. Fans go and spend their money. People spend the best part of hundreds and thousands on this football club and travel all the way around the world to go and see them. People come and travel over for the home games alone. I think, like you said, Pat, I think fans are well entitled to their view, however they want to do it. But all we ask, I think many would agree, it just isn't abusive when you're on the pitch, right? I mean, that's
show a bit of respect. Show a bit of respect. It's a tough one because I do hear it from both sides. Fans should be able to show their discontent and basically, how upset they are. But then I also do get that sometimes if you do boo, it can affect the players and the manager to a degree. So it is a tricky one. There's no
the only thing I'd say on that, Pat, is I think we're at a point now where this is the Premier League. This is the best league in the world. You're playing, as we say, for a club like Tottenham, that when we're at home, and I know you agree with this, Pat, because bless you, you have been of accustomed to this nature, and we all are. When we're at home, like TJ said, we should be going into every game believing we should be winning. And I would really want to expect and hope that these players are not put off by a jeer from a fan. Again, and I think it's quite interesting. One thing I didn't quite like, and look, can I just say to you, I'm not his biggest fan. When I say I'm not his biggest fan, what I mean by, someone like Brennan Johnson, I think, like TJ said, scored some massive, massive goals for us. The problem I've got with Brennan, and this sounds crazy to say this, that when Brennan is not scoring, this is mad because scoring is the hardest thing to do in football. We all agree with that. It's the hardest thing to do to put the ball in the back of the net. But when Brennan isn't scoring, what is Brennan doing? And this is the thing, there's games, like I say, I look at today where we might as well be playing with 10. And I don't mean it disrespectfully to Brennan because there are, and just to be clear, I'm not just picking on Brennan. There are other players in that game for me as well that didn't really offer much. We said Porro had a bad game. I mean, look, everybody really had a bad game, bar like we said, Vicario and Mickey van der Ven. Nobody had a good game, but these are the games that you turn to your forward players and you want them to change it. And Brennan is a forward the same way Wilson is a forward, the same way Tell is a forward. I thought Tell, when he came on, like you said, Pat, I think, that opportunity there, if that goes in the back of the net, his confidence goes sky high. But I think this is where you look to your forwards in games like this and you want them to change it. And quite frankly, we never did. I mean, like midfield, I'd say second half came along. We made a couple of changes in there. But nothing really made a difference. Again, Vicario, again, I have to say, because I was in South Upper looking down, all I could see was kind of flapping in between moments from the other end. I'm thinking, all I can see is these kind of yellow gloves just flapping everywhere. And I'm thinking, I'm absolutely terrified here because I couldn't see. But the thing with Vicario is, Tej, he makes, he made, like you said, 4 or 5 or 6 really good saves. I mean, if it wasn't for Vicario, Tej, it could have been a cricket score, didn't it? And then that's the thing with Vicario.
Yes,
great shot stopper.
Literally 5 or 6.
Yep.
Can you imagine? I mean, obviously, Thomas Frank has had a great start. We're all very pleased that we have acquired him. There are other clubs, around the Premier League and of course around the world who I'm sure are jealous that, they didn't perhaps bring him in, but it could have been 5 or 6 today. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
It could have been. I think like we said, I think you have to say collectively as a team, bar Vicario and bar Mickey van der Ven, everybody was
correct.
Let's talk about it.
And like here's the thing with Johnson, again, like where I think he could really do himself a favor. And I'm sorry to keep banging this drum, but again, I think I can speak for, quite a large proportion of Tottenham fans, that if you're not going to put the ball in the back of the net, and not to discredit what you've said, Rick, what you've said about scoring goals is of course 100% true. And again, I have always been an advocate of Brennan Johnson's. However, mate, just put yourself about. Please, just put yourself about. Do try to rush people. Do try to press people. If it gets in behind you, if it's if Jed Spence is up on his own, come and track back. Do make yourself available. Go up to the guys, clap your hands. Be vocal. Do something, because now you've been there for a little while now, and there's lots of new players at the club, and there's lots of really young players at the club. And I think Brennan's what now, 24, 25, something like that. So we're now looking at Premier League football and really global football, where 15, 16, and 17-year-olds are coming on and lighting it up. Yep. So even with Tell, people say, and I agree with this, he's only 20, but like people are also going 20, which I also understand. So if you're kind of 24, 25 and you're not going to score, brother, at least be a handful, be a menace, put yourself about, lead that press. If Rich is behaving like a stroppy teenager, and let's be honest, he was, be like, Rich, come on, man, let's, I do this on the football pitch. I'll say, guys, for the next 5 minutes, just do 10% more and really push and see what we can do. And again, that's just a decision that you make. That's about heart. I don't want to hear about tired legs, because believe me, your brain will tell you, oh, you're done well before your body is done. Ask anyone who served in the military and they will tell you that. So just give it some of that, man. Don't be beaten. And to your point, Rick, when you said at home, let's make sure we win. Again, not to be, too pedantic about it, but for me, it's more about saying, don't be beaten. Like, we will not be beaten at home. Even if you lose the game, we, to a man, will not be beaten. If you want to win here, you got to snap us in half, because we're coming for you. I want that kind of spirit at Tottenham.
No, I agree. I think that would be one of the key worries, the fact of how easily the game felt. It got away from us and how poor we was on the day. And look, from everything through to tactics, through to personnel, it just wasn't a good day at the office. Guys, I think for all of our sake, I do want to just quickly move on from,
Can I just some context, Ricky? Can I just give some context, guys? We all need to calm down, okay? Okay. We've played 3 games. We've conceded 1 goal and lost 1 game, okay? Yeah. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. It's not good. It's not what we wanted. Yes, we didn't win the first ball. Yes, we didn't win the 50-50s or the second balls, right? It was, but it is 1 game, right? Yeah. If it becomes a pattern, then we should absolutely be upset and perturbed about what is going on. But right now, it might be an isolated incident. So let's calm down, because up until yesterday, you were all buzzing. Okay, we won our first 2 games. We just signed Xavi Simons, and unfortunately, the legs have been kicked away from us. So let's have some context on the situation.
Agree.
Can I just quickly say, I think we are calm. I don't think I've seen anyone go crazy yet on social media. But what I think, Johnny, the worry is that from last year where we lost 10 games at home, what we don't want to see is that old pattern creeping back in. So I think a lot of fans have got PTSD from last year. So even though it's just 1 game and it's 1 isolated incident, blah, 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 we're all worried that if this can happen so early, what will happen when the going gets tough? So
absolutely. And it's not the result. And again, we've all known this. Yeah. It's just the fact that we were kind of strolling around. There's never an excuse for that. That's, I think, what we all take exception to. Yeah. We know we're 3 games in. We've got the right man. The squad is going in the way that we want it to. But we can never kind of come out, especially at home, and just kind of stroll about. That's never acceptable and has to be stamped out.
I think we all accept that at home. You can't be in a situation where from our perspective, you're conceding that amount of shots. If we're conceding 16, 17 a game, like Johnny says, if that becomes a pattern, we are going to get worried, right? But at the same time, this is a new manager. It's a squad that we're trying to get together. And I think it's, again, a damning indictment, really, as we've always said. The club needs to do more to support the manager. And perversely, look, I don't want to lose any game of football. I hate losing. Unfortunately, as Spurs fans, we do become acclimatized with losing, but I have to hope this might be a case where it accelerates us into the market. I want to ask you guys very, very quickly about the market, because we do understand Spurs. I'm just going to give a roundup of where we are on the market, because there's been a couple of suggestions about what is coming next for Tottenham in that market. And just to give everybody an understanding of the latest news on the circuit at the moment, we understand Spurs are currently trying to get a deal done for Manuel Akanji. Spurs are currently leading competition to sign the Man City defender. Now, quite interestingly, both AC Milan and Palace want the player too, but Spurs hold the key advantage because they have Champions League football that he desires. City want 15 million plus bonuses for him, which all three clubs can agree to. So the fee's not going to be the problem for the player, but the player does want to play Champions League football, and that's something Tottenham can offer. We also understand that Tottenham have also had contact with Atalanta over a deal for, I know Johnny's a fan, Ademola Lookman. We understand a permanent transfer would cost in the region of around 35 to 40 million, although a late loan deal has not been ruled out either. It's been suggested that Tottenham, in these final days of the window, do want to sign a potential another forward. And obviously, you'd think that will be the case even more so now, given that Solanke injury, which, according to Thomas Frank, he believes we will see Dominic Solanke after the international break. I'll be honest with you, I think I'm at a point now where I'll believe it when I see it with Tottenham, because normally when there is injury news, it's not often that the time scales ever seem to work in our favour. And we understand the club are still in the market for a predominant left-sided centre-half, like we've discussed there, potentially Manuel Akanji being a target, but also keep an eye on Nathan Ake. I think we discussed him in our last show. Nathan Ake is understood to be a player that Tottenham also have on their radar. Guys, a couple of days to go. You are all going to join us on deadline day on all different time zones around the world, wherever you are. Johnny will be in a different time zone completely, bless his heart. Let's start with very quick round-up. What do we need now? We've seen that game. International break is here. 6 points out of a possible 9. We can do better. We know what the squad's capable of. We've seen it. We've seen two contrasting displays, like we said, from what we saw against, obviously, City to what we've now seen, of course, at home to Bournemouth. Pat, let's start with you. What do you feel that we need now in these final days to give Thomas Frank the best opportunity to fight on all four fronts, which, again, just to be clear, that's the board's objective, what they've put to Thomas Frank, not the fans' objective, Pat. What do we need?
You know what? I'm going to have to add a striker. I didn't even think about this up until today, but I just don't think Solanke is reliable enough now. And it's quite concerning that he keeps breaking down. He was injured for pretty much all of the preseason. And now when he was meant to be ready to go again, he's broken down. The problem is that Richarlison also isn't the most reliable striker. Between the two, I do like them. I think that they always give their all. Yes, they're allowed a bad game like Richarlison had today, but all in all, they always work hard for the shirt, and you can never question their endeavour and tenacity and desire. But between the two of them, I don't think you can rely on them to give you 50 to 60 games. So a striker is another one I'm going to add to the list. I don't know how realistic that is. And then, of course, you guys have mentioned a left winger, 100% need one, and a left-sided centre-back. We've got the number 10 in. So, yeah, for me, we still need 3 more in, 2 days?
Confident, Pat, they'll get them done?
Confident that we could get a left winger and a centre back in. Yeah, obviously the striker one is what I would like. I don't know if that's realistic, but I just don't know if it's wise to not have a out and out number 9, for the season, because I don't want to see Tell starting as a number 9 in a big game.
I get it, Pat. Thank you so much, mate. We try to make this show as quick as we can. Wonderful Patrick Tyrant. Pat is also back on YouTube now. At Patrick Tyrant, just his name. God, what a time to return, Pat.
No,
it looked good 3 days ago.
No. It's been good. It's been good. Obviously, today's hopefully a blip. But yeah, check me out, Patrick Tyrant on YouTube. Nice little short, sharp segments. Would love to have you all over there. So yeah.
Bless you, Pat. Thank you so much. Please, guys, make sure you go and like and subscribe over there. The wonderful Patty Tyrant. Tej, let's come to you, and we're going to close with Johnny. Tej, you'll be with us on deadline day, as will Pat and Johnny too. What do we need, Tej, going into these final couple of days of the window? Does that spur them into life? Pardon the pun.
I think that, to be honest, I don't think today's result makes much of a difference. I think that a lot of deals are trying to be finalised. The last day of the transfer window is always chaotic, and Tottenham have we've brought in some magnificent signings, haven't we, on the last day of the transfer window? And so, to Pat's point, it's absolutely right. If I was to prioritise 2 of 3, right, I would prioritise. We need a left-sided defensive player. I think Akanji would be terrific. I like Nathan Ake as well. I think they both bring a pedigree and an experience, and also it makes a difference again to young kids when you have somebody walk through the door who's covered in medals. I think that really makes a difference. Both physical players as well, technical. I like them both, and also I can see both of those. At least one of those, I can actually see one of those getting done. Yes, we need a proper left winger, but then I fear, well, then what does that say and do to Odebear and Tell? And again, if Tell was £40 million, what was the point? So, and then to a number 9, they're just so rare. They just seem to be becoming rarer and rarer.
We see the price they're going for, don't we? Strand Larson, 50 million now. Newcastle bid for him.
False 9 and no, they're so rare. So for me, I would rather prioritise like a quality, proven left-sided defensive player and a left winger, and then just take a punt on some kid that no one's ever heard of, but you play. Why not?
That's what we normally do.
But bro, look what Bournemouth did. Again, like they lost 3 of their fantastic players, and then in comes Senesi and Fluber or whatever his name was. Never heard of any of these guys. Come in and
who knew about Evanilson? Or even Patrick Kluivert.
Exactly. Yeah. Who heard of him? And he's come in and done the business. He scored 12 goals last season. So that's what I'd like to see. I think we will get another defender, another left winger, and take a punt on a number 9. Go and get some kid from Rennes or from Belgium or from somewhere. Bring him in and see what he does. If he ain't that expensive, he's a loan. It was worth it. Great to be back on the show. Sorry about today, guys, but listen, man, it's a blip in the road, a bump in the road. Love to you, Pat. Great to see you, mate. Johnny, lovely to see you. Ricky, my thanks to you as ever. Please like, subscribe, and share this show, the best Tottenham show there is. Get this out to a global audience. My love to the viewers and listeners. And I'll see you again soon. Enjoy your weekends.
Bless your heart, mate. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you on deadline day. You and Anthony Costa, that'll be a mix, won't it? That'll be really, really fun. On that point, we are hearing news as we're talking right now that Tottenham target Manuel Akanji is not accepting AC Milan's current offer. So keep an eye on that. That news again, Manuel Akanji not accepting AC Milan's current offer. I've got the feeling we're going to turn to supermarket sweep the next 24, 48 hours, and Johnny Hamme will be at the centre of it and have to catch a plane at the same time. John, close off him on this point. We both spoke about this at length, me and you. We know they need to do more. What do they need to do, in your opinion, to give Thomas Frank the tools he needs to really fight on all 4 fronts? We said it could be a 60-game season. We can't lose our mind at match week 3. We've got 57 more of these potentially. God, that's quite scary to think about that.
Yeah, listen, we've got to stop pushing and start edging, because it seems to be when we start edging, deals seem to get done. Look, I'm surprised about Akanji refusing AC Milan, because they offered him a 5-year contract, and with Spurs, he's only going to get offered a 2+1. So I'm quite surprised at that. But I think either Akanji or Nathan Ake suit Spurs down to the ground. Because they bring in experience for 2 years, while Vuskovic and the others do a little bit more maturing until they're ready. So I'm all for that.
Yep.
He's not a Hincape, but he will do. But for me, Ademar Lookman is the one that I've wanted before we were linked with Savinho. Listen, 20 GA last season. I know what you all think about his performance in the Premier League, but he's played League One.
I was just told that on the train home. Oh, everyone's asking me. I'm getting on the train. Rick, who we signing? I don't play.
Listen, look, people turn their nose up at Ademar Lookman, right? But what I know is he's done it 3 years on the trot at Atalanta. Who can forget? You say you can't do it on the big stage. He scored a hat-trick in the Europa League final against Bayer Leverkusen.
Yep.
He's a left winger, he's a right winger, and he's a false 9. So he fits into very different scenarios with how Frank will play. If there's an injury, he can cover on the right. He's very comfortable on the left, cutting in. He's very direct, and in transition, he's exactly what you need to have. Someone like Lookman, Xavi Simons, and Kudos breaking. Thank you very much. I think that will do nicely. And as far as look, I know this one's going to really set the cat amongst the pigeons, but when I watched today's performance, there's one player who I think, we could get him on loan. He's from the dark side, but I actually think that Conor Gallagher is actually exactly, he plays exactly as Thomas Frank likes, that manic press. He would have been perfect today to be in that midfield, counter-pressing Bournemouth. Whether or not he would come, I don't know. They're looking for about £40 million, whether you can do a loan with an option. So I'd like to see 2 signings and 1 potential loan with an option. But listen, this is Tottenham Hotspur. Daniel, get your checkbook out. You saw it today. You got to give the man the tools, okay? You can't build a new house.
Agree.
Okay? A luxury house with 1 hammer. You need the rest of the tools. Give it to him and let's see what happens.
Amen. Johnny, thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much. Look, we didn't want to end match day 3 like this. We're going to come on to it. I promise you, we're going to push it. We're going to push it. But again, I understand. Look, international breaks with Tottenham, they're the bane of our lives at the moment. I'm not sure what it is with regards to these international breaks and why we struggle so much before them. Is it a player thing? Is it a club thing we're going through at the moment? But yeah, unbelievable. Tottenham without a win on the eve of international break since October 2023. Like I opened the show to shut the show, Luton have been relegated twice since then. We have to hope for better. We'll be back with you, of course, as we look to close the window. We will close the window. Jason will shut it for you, literally. I want to say a massive thanks to the wonderful Patrick Tyrant, at Patrick Tyrant, of course, on YouTube. Pat, thank you so much. Let's hope, mate, this is not a trend, because as all here, this bonded us a lot as a family, quite literally. But we want better for this season, Pat, right? We want better.
Yeah, and I think there will be better. There's going to be bumps in the road, like in the group chats after the first 2, a lot of people were saying, I can see us winning our next 4 or 5. And I said it, like, there will be a blip. There, every good team will have a bad day at the office. Of course. It looks like today's our one. Hopefully, they do say that you learn a lot more in defeat than you do, when you win. So Frank would have learned a lot. We as the fans can see and learned a lot, and we keep it moving, man.
Totally agree. TJ, thank you so much, mate. Like I say, go and enjoy watching Heung-Min Son in action. Let's make that very clear.
Yeah,
go and
I'm
enjoy
specifically going just to see him. Just so people know, I'm going to go and watch Sonny at LAFC tomorrow night. And the chaps asked me before the show, "Oh, who are they playing?" And I said, "I've got no idea." And I still have no idea. I'm
it's top of the league, aren't they? I've got no idea.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I'm a big, an ardent fan.
Of course, Sonny, we're going to join us.
I'm specifically going to go and see Sonny. I'll be wearing a Tottenham shirt with Sonny on the back. I might pick up an LAFC scarf or something just to show a little respect, but I'll be sending him much love from all of us. So thank you, guys. I'll see you again.
Well, now Son's delegate has watched this, TJ. You better stick to that. Listen, bless your heart.
Absolutely.
We love you very much. TJ, you're a superstar. Johnny, thank you so much, mate. Johnny, back with us very, very soon on deadline day. Guys, look, not the start we wanted, but we have to put it in perspective. We are starting a new venture, a new journey. We have to get behind the manager, give him time, and at the same time, give him the tools, Mr. Levy & Co. From the wonderful Johnny over at Football Inc. Please make sure you go and like and subscribe there. And, of course, on his Insta, JohnnyH3232 and Talking Tottenham 882. Pat, of course, at Patrick Tyrant and TJ Ramini. Get him on Instagram. He loves a quiz. We need more quizzes in our lives. Guys, keep safe, keep well. And, as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on.